Group Editorial Director of India Today, Mr. Arun Priye, founder of India Today, Ambassador Sujan Chinoy, it's good to see you again after so many years, distinguished speakers and participants, ladies and gentlemen. Suprabhat, मेरा नाम हिरोशी सुजुकी है। मैं भारत में जापान का राजदूत हूँ। पिछले महीने राजदूत का पद संभाला है। At the outset, I would like to thank India Today for organizing such a wonderful event. And it is my great pleasure to be a part of it and be given an opportunity to speak before you. And I would also like to thank a number of Japanese companies who have given generous cooperation to make this event possible. Dr. Jaishankar spoke so comprehensively and in so much detail that I think he's done a great job for me. So I have little to speak or add, but I think he spoke with such an insight, with such an overview for a long span of time. So let me just supplement what he said, concentrating on recent years and hopefully to look ahead a little bit. First and foremost, huge congratulations on India's becoming the presidency of the G7. The world attention is now focusing on India, and India's theme of one Earth, one family, one future is very relevant to today's changing international situation. Now, frankly, the international community faces a number of difficult challenges, so India's leadership for world's prosperity and more development is critically important than ever before. So in this context, Prime Minister Modi told President Putin in September this year that this is not the era of war. Now, based on the recent international situation, everybody thought that in the last G20 Bali summit in November, that it would be, frankly, next to impossible to get a consensus on the leaders' declaration. However, it was issued by consensus, including the line which said, today's era must not be of war, which is very much in line with what Prime Minister Modi told President Putin 2 months ago. And in my view, India played an important role in issuing this critically important leaders' declaration. So next year, India's responsibility is of great importance. And as India's friend, Japan stands ready to cooperate with India as much as possible so that India's G20 presidency and G20 summit in September next year will be a great success. Japan, for its part, will become the presidency of the G7 next year. Prime Minister Kishida will host the G7 summit in May from the 19th through 21st in Hiroshima, which is his hometown. So it is only natural that given the difficult challenges that we face in the international community, the synergy between the G20 and the G7 is more important than ever before. Now, the Japan-India cooperation on the international fora is important. Let me give you another example. UN Security Council. India is concluding its 2-year non-permanent seat tenure this month. And Japan will be, in turn, coming in as non-permanent member beginning next January. And we try to cooperate as closely as possible so that, for example, Foreign Minister Dr. Jaishankar just went to New York to chair the open debate. You mentioned counterterrorism, but he also chaired another important UN Security Council open debate, which is along the lines of a new orientation for reformed multilateralism. And Japan, for its part, we intend to hold an open debate centering on the theme of, rule of law, which is a very important principle in the UN Charter. So here again, the synergy between India and Japan is extremely important. So I am so happy to be here to serve as Japan's ambassador at a critical juncture when Japan-India cooperation and collaboration on the international fora is so much more important than ever before. Now, as you've kindly mentioned, I have served Prime Minister Abe for 7 years and 7 months as his executive secretary. And as such, I have seen two visionary leaders, Prime Minister Modi and Prime Minister Abe, up close on how they respected each other and how they joined hands together to make Japan-India partnership skyrocket to a whole new dimension. The two leaders held 15 bilateral summits, and I have been privileged to sit in on all those 15 summit meetings. Unfortunately, Prime Minister Abe was assassinated, but he is here in my heart always, and I am determined to do my best to further develop the special partnership between Japan and India, which is both strategic and global. Now, since I served Prime Minister Abe for a long time, I can speak for him on the importance of Japan-India partnership. He always said Japan-India relations is the bilateral relationship with greatest potential. He was convinced that Japan and India should be in the lead to secure peace and prosperity of this region and beyond, because Japan and India are the greatest democracies in this region. He was convinced that Japan and India should take the lead because our both countries share the fundamental value of freedom. So we should be in the lead for prosperity and peace in the region and beyond. He believed that Japan and India should take the lead because we share the key guiding principle of rule of law, so that we should be in the driving seat to secure peace and prosperity in the region and the world. This was his long-held conviction. So as early as 2007, when he visited India in August, he gave a speech in the Indian Parliament entitled Confluence of the Two Seas. And he articulated his vision, which in later years became as the free and open Indo-Pacific. Now, in 2013, Prime Minister Abe became Japan's Prime Minister again. And the next year, 2014, Prime Minister Modi became the Prime Minister of India. And the two visionary leaders really propelled our special partnership to a whole new dimension, which is strategic and truly global. Prime Minister Abe also strongly promoted the framework of Quad in order to really advance strongly his vision of free and open Indo-Pacific. And as you noted, the first summit of the Quad was held in September last year at the White House, and the second summit meeting was held this past May in Tokyo, chaired by Prime Minister Kishida. Now, next year, it is India's turn to host the Foreign Ministers' Quad meeting, and although nothing is decided, it is my high hope that India, after successfully completing its G20 presidency next year, India will come to host the Quad Summit the year next, which is 2024. That is my personal strong hope. Now, Prime Minister Kishida very much wants to build on the achievements attained by Prime Minister Abe and Prime Minister Modi. He visited New Delhi in March this year, which was his very first overseas travel after the COVID pandemic. So this fact eloquently shows that he attaches highest priority in further promoting our special partnership. So, looking ahead, we have a number of high-level political visits. In terms of annual mutual visits by the leaders, next year, it is Prime Minister Modi's turn to visit Japan. And very naturally, Prime Minister Kishida is expected to attend the G20 summit in September. So there will be another occasion for both leaders to meet and give new impetus to our special partnership. So, and not only at the leaders level, but Japanese Foreign Minister Hayashi, he is also looking forward to visit India. First, on the occasion of the G20 Foreign Ministers meeting, which is only 3 months away. Actually, you're going to host the Foreign Ministers meeting on March the 1st and 2nd. But, he will have a second chance to visit India because, as I said, India is going to host a Quad Foreign Ministerial meeting. So, twice in 1 year for the Japanese Foreign Minister. This is a golden opportunity to really also flesh out, under the guidance and the vision of the leaders. The two foreign ministers have great occasions to really flesh out the details for senior officials to work on. Now, there are many important areas where Japan and India can further develop our important partnership. Prime Minister Abe really attached importance on strengthening our cooperation in the defense and the security area. Now, I guess the reason is obvious. With the advent of the new century, and particularly in light of what's going on in the world, the need for strengthening our cooperation in the defense and the security area is more important than ever. This is, I guess, self-evident. So it was important that we had Foreign Ministerial 2+2 in Tokyo back in September, and the 4 ministers really engaged in frank exchange of views from strategic point of view, and they agreed on the future orientation of our cooperation going ahead. So that was a great achievement. At the same time, the bilateral joint exercises in all 3 services of land, sea, and air are progressing, and this is very important. And come next year, there will be a first joint exercise by the jet fighter aircrafts of Japan and India. First time ever. In addition, we have multilateral framework of joint exercises such as Malabar. So it is important that not only at the leaders level, ministers level, we have policy engagement to set the vision, set the orientation, but on the ground, in there, on the high seas, all 3 services are engaged in joint exercises. So this is very, very encouraging, and I'm sure Prime Minister Abe will be pleased with the current progress. Now, looking ahead, Japan attaches importance in supporting India in its efforts to try to diversify its defense procurement. It is India's own endeavor, so we fully respect the India's requirements, but at the same time, we want to be as helpful as possible. Now, economic relations is another major pillar of advancing our special partnership. Much has been said already, but I just want to add that Prime Minister Abe often said, strong and prosperous India is in the best interest of Japan, and strong and prosperous Japan is in the best interest of India. So, as you can see, our economic relations are mutually complementary and mutually beneficial. Right now, there are about 1,450 Japanese companies investing and actively doing business on the ground. And, you can see many names. They have become household names. Maruti Suzuki, the most notable one, and also Daikin, also household names. In order to push this trend forward, when Prime Minister Kishida came here in March, the 2 leaders agreed to hoist a new target, which is a 5-year, 5 trillion yen investment and financing. At the yen-dollar rate at that time, which roughly translates to $42 billion for the next 5 years. Now, henceforth, there has been a couple of major new investment announcements made by Suzuki, made by Toyota, made by Nippon Steel already. So there has been a very encouraging new developments already triggered by Prime Minister Kishida's new commitment. So we are contributing to Prime Minister Modi's vision of make in India and make for the world through encouraging very active and still further Japanese investments to coming to India to invest and manufacture on the ground in India. At the same time, in order to further promote Japanese investment, it is necessary to work both ways. So the Japan Chamber of Commerce in India annually compiles its proposals to enhance business environment in India, which is, I've seen this, very comprehensive. And in recent years, we have made intensive efforts to make this proposal a two-way communication. Not just compile our requests and put it, and that's the end of the story. That's not the way. We want to engage in two-way communication so that Indian side can deepen understanding of what our requirements are, and vice versa. Japanese companies will be able to deepen their understanding of what are the Indian rules and regulations, and what are the Indian policy visions, and how these policy visions will be implemented in the coming months and years. So I have high hopes that in 5 years' time, this new target will be met. I'll keep my fingers crossed. Now, the flagship project in the economic area, of course, is the high-speed rail. The work is vigorously underway between Mumbai and Ahmedabad. And beginning tomorrow, I will travel to Surat and see with my own eyes how the work is progressing. I have already seen an impressive visual, which is taken by the drones. And if you have seen it, I really recommend you to take a look at it. This is very exciting. So I am much looking forward to my visit from tomorrow and actually see on the ground the current progress. And this is a huge, huge project. So as you mentioned, or Dr. Jaishankar mentioned, Delhi Metro 20 years ago was, in a way, a revolution. So in my mind, this high-speed rail will also usher in another revolution when it is complete. So there are many challenges, frankly speaking, but I want to hoist high in my team and the Indian team the spirit of one team, one project, so that we can work together, combining our wisdom, our efforts, so that we can meet the vision of Prime Minister Modi. Now, there are other important areas in the economic area. Climate change, of course, is a very important challenge. And in January next year, in mid-January, Japan is going to organize Japan-India Environmental Week. And we intend to present a holistic approach. It's not just a seminar, but it's a combination of seminar, exhibition, and business matching. And of course, we'll have online inviting all the states in the union, so that we'll be able to give new impetus in this critically important area of climate change. And still further ahead, in February, high-powered business delegation is going to visit New Delhi. This will be chaired by top-level Japanese business leaders, and they will engage with their counterparts in FICCI. So I am hoping to utilize this juncture to stimulate further Japanese investment into India. Now, northeastern part of India is also a very important agenda for both of our countries. And Prime Minister Kishida, back in March, he agreed with Prime Minister Modi on the importance of sustainable development and connectivity in the northeastern area. So I am looking forward to sharing what is called Act East Forum with Foreign Secretary Quattro in the early months of next year, so that we can actually push forward various projects on the ground. Now, I'm speaking too long, but it'll be remiss if I didn't mention cultural exchange and people-to-people exchange. What I particularly attach importance to is the exchange of young people, because they are the future of our relationship. So I am glad that as part of the 70th year anniversary events, the organizing committee held what is called the Idea Song. Now what they did was they selected 20 people from Japan and another 20 people from India, and they traveled from New Delhi to Varanasi, and they created small groups and they discussed day in and day out. And their theme was what is the innovative way to meet the challenges of the communities of the Indian and Japanese societies face. And they presented their final analysis in the international convention in Varanasi. And it was an amazing success. So even Prime Minister Modi referred to this when he visited Tokyo in September, and in his meeting with Prime Minister Kishida, he gave a very high appraisal of this project. And he expressed high hopes that this could be continued in one way or another in the coming years, leading up to our 75th anniversary year. So, as ambassador, I would like to work with my Indian friends and Japanese friends to see to it that this will continue in a creative way. Also, Japanese language education is important. The need is obvious. When Prime Minister Abe visited Gujarat 5 years ago, in the leaders' declaration, the importance of Japanese language education was mentioned. So they agreed to further promote Japanese language courses in high education institutions, and to create more Japanese language teachers. So as ambassador, I want to encourage our joint endeavor in this area as well. And also the world is really competing for IT human resources. India's IT human resources are the top in the world. So there is no need to say the importance. But between Japan and India, there could be additional areas such as caregiving, such as agriculture, which in Japan until today are not really utilized its full potential. So recently, Japanese local prefectural governments are beginning to show interest, such as Fukui Prefecture had an early success in inviting caregivers to their elderly home. And I've seen the video clip by NHK, and it's a wonderful success. The Japanese elderly people are so grateful by the warm heart by the Indian caregivers. And they're saying, oh, thank you very much. I'm so happy with surrounded by Indian warm-hearted people. Another example is Kochi Prefecture. They would like to see more highly talented Indian people to engage in agricultural sector. And I think there are only two, but in recent months, the governor of Kochi Prefecture met with them to showcase the high potential in this area. So all in all, Japan has a system called Specified Skilled Workers, SSW, and Technical Intern Training Program that does TITP. So I want to harness these systems so that more potential could be realized in many parts of Japan, so that this kind of new people-to-people exchange will be beneficial for both sides. Now, this month of December concludes the 70th anniversary of the diplomatic relations between India and Japan. But, this is not the end. This is the beginning for exciting next year when you chair the G20 presidency. And the success of your presidency is critically important for the entire world, for various challenges, the climate change challenge, the food crisis challenge, various difficult challenges that we face in the international community. So I have high hopes that today's event and the success of today's event will greatly contribute to further enhancing our audience's understanding of where we stand each other and what great potential our special partnership will have on the entire world. So thank you very much for organizing this important event, and thank you very much for having me participating in this important event. Thank you very much. Daniel.
Ambassador, do stay with us for a moment. We would love to show a token of our appreciation. Could I welcome Mr. Alok Kumar on stage, Chairman, President and CEO at NEC.
The Japanese ambassador said that he has to leave in a rush. So just to say thank you very much, Ambassador Hiroshi Suzuki, for this. I think you've got your plate full, you've covered all the various bases. I just have one small question about it, is that it's in the news that Japan has raised its defense expenditure by 2% of its GDP. It is to counter the threat of China. How can Japan and India, on the defense front, we mentioned the cooperation that we could have, how could this lead to greater defense relations between India and Japan? Do you see that as a big potential?
Thank you very much for your question. Recently, the Kishida administration has taken a historic decision to really fundamentally reinvent the Japanese defense policy. And what you mentioned is our new goal in 5 years' time. So in 5 years, in year 2027, Japanese government intends to, roughly speaking, double its defense expenditure. But this is not for country specific. This is to make Japanese security policy, defense policy more relevant to the drastically changing international situation. And so, you know, each country will take its own decision. But if you look at many European countries, they have also reviewed their defense policies in a fundamental way, and they have a number of countries have already announced that they will significantly increase the level of their defense expenditure. So, in a large context, the recent Japanese government's decision is along the same orientation. But then again, you know, the situation is different from the European front and Japanese theater, and also the approach is different because Japan doesn't have any multilateral alliance like NATO. So for Japan, of course, we have Japan-US Security Alliance, which is the only security treaty alliance we have. But at the same time, we want to create sort of a policy synergy with like-minded countries, like India, like a number of European countries, like France, like Germany, like the Netherlands, also the UK, and I need to also mention Australia, New Zealand. So this is a multifaceted diplomatic engagement that we intend to do. And you know, in previous exchange with Dr. Jaishankar, you raised a question that is Quad a security undertaking? Seen from the Japanese view, it is distinctively different from security undertaking because some countries try to portray that it is an attempt to create Asian version of NATO. Completely wrong. That's not what we are doing. You know, Prime Minister Abe's vision, as I said, was to realize free and open Indo-Pacific. And in order to realize his vision, he came up with the idea of creating the framework of Quad. So in his mind, Quad was always a forum for cooperation to realize free and open Indo-Pacific. Not a closed undertaking, not an undertaking to antagonize anybody. That's not the case. That was the original intention. And for Japan, we intend to pursue that vision.
Thank you so much, Ambassador. We've run out of time. Thank you very much. Let's give him a very warm round of applause for coming here and to you. Wish you guys congratulations. All the best.
Alok, if I could welcome you back on stage, please. Thank you so much, and let me just remind our guests of our official hashtag. It's the Indo-Japan Summit with all the key takeaways from those incredibly insightful keynotes today, both from Honorable Minister as well as the Ambassador. I'd like to thank our sponsors, presented by Marketing Institute, followed by Mitsui and Co. Take part